The fluorescent lights of our family's small grocery store buzzed overhead as I carefully arranged the inventory spreadsheets on the counter, my trembling hands making the task take twice as long as it should. At 22, I had learned to manage my essential tremor well enough to handle most tasks, but fine motor control remained a daily challenge. Alexandra, my father's voice carried from the back office, stop wasting time with those papers. We need you to stock shelves. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Dad, I've developed a new inventory system. It could save us thousands in overstock and waste. What we need is physical work done. He cut me off, emerging from the office. Your brother Michael can handle the business side. Michael, my younger brother by 2 years, smirked from behind the register. He had dropped out of college after 1 semester, claiming he already knew everything about business from working in the store. Yet somehow, he was still my parents' choice for handling our failing store's finances. I got accepted into the MBA program, I said quietly, pulling out the acceptance letter I'd received that morning. Full scholarship. They have accommodations for. Not this again, Mom sighed, walking in from the stockroom. Alexandra, we've discussed this. Who would hire someone with your condition? The store is your future. Be grateful we can provide that. The words stung, just as they had when they rejected my undergraduate dreams 4 years ago. I'd managed to get my bachelor's degree in business administration anyway, taking online classes at night while working full-time at the store. Not that my family had attended the graduation. The Americans with Disabilities Act, I started. Laws don't change reality, Dad interrupted. No major company will trust important decisions to someone who can't even hold a pen steadily. The family store is your safety net. Don't be selfish. I looked down at my hands, now trembling more from emotion than from my condition. The essential tremor I'd developed in my teens had become my family's excuse for everything. Why I couldn't go away to college. Why I couldn't pursue my dreams. Why I should be grateful for whatever scraps of responsibility they deemed me worthy of. I've already accepted, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. Classes start next month. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face crumpled in what I recognized as her preparation for emotional manipulation. Dad's face turned red with anger. Michael just laughed. And how exactly do you plan to pay for living expenses? Dad demanded. Your position here will be filled if you leave. I've been saving, I replied. And I've secured a part-time research assistant position at the university. They're excited about my data analysis skills. Data analysis? Michael snorted. You can barely use a smartphone without your hands shaking. I bit back a retort about his inability to use a calculator without making errors. Instead, I pulled out my tablet and brought up the prototype inventory management system I'd developed. I've been managing our inventory digitally for the past year, I said, turning the screen toward them. We've reduced waste by 23% in the departments where I implemented it. The tremor doesn't affect my ability to type or use touchscreens. Nobody asked you to do that, Dad snapped. Michael handles the business decisions. And how's that working out? I couldn't help asking, gesturing to the increasingly empty shelves and dwindling customer base. Our revenue is down 40% from last year. That's because of the new supermarket, Michael protested. It has nothing to do with management. The supermarket is an opportunity, not a death sentence, I argued. We could specialize, focus on local and ethnic products they don't carry. I've done the market research. Enough. Dad slammed his hand on the counter. You want to abandon your family? Fine. But don't come crying back when the real world rejects you, like we know it will. Mom started crying, right on cue. After all we've done for you, protecting you, giving you a purpose. Protecting me? I laughed incredulously. You've been using my disability as an excuse to keep me dependent. But I'm done letting you define my limitations. I pulled out an envelope from my bag, my resignation letter, written and rewritten over weeks of preparation. I quit, I said simply, placing it on the counter. My last day will be Friday. You ungrateful, Dad started, but I cut him off. I'm grateful for the lessons you've taught me, I said calmly, especially about how not to treat people with disabilities. I walked out of the store that evening feeling lighter than I had in years. My hands were steady as I drove to my small apartment, another secret I'd kept from my family, having moved out 3 months ago while pretending to still live in their basement. My phone buzzed continuously with messages from family members, aunts, uncles, cousins, all expressing shock and disappointment at my selfish decision. The family gossip network was nothing if not efficient. Who do you think you are? My aunt's message read, your parents gave you a future despite your disability, and this is how you repay them. I turned off my phone and opened my laptop instead, smiling at the email from Professor Martinez, my future research advisor. Excited to have you join our program, Alexandra. Your analysis of small business adaptation in changing market environments is exactly what we're looking for. The next 2 years were transformative. My tremor, rather than holding me back, pushed me to innovate. I developed software that made detailed analysis accessible to people with various physical limitations. My thesis on digital transformation in small businesses caught the attention of several major companies. By graduation, I had multiple job offers. I chose a position with a leading technology consulting firm, specializing in business transformation for traditional industries. My hands still shook, but my mind was sharper than ever. I kept tabs on my family's store through local business records. They were failing, just as I predicted. Michael's mismanagement and their refusal to adapt to changing market conditions were driving them toward bankruptcy. Then came the day that changed everything. 5 years after I'd walked out of the store, I was sitting in my corner office at Davis and Mitchell Consulting, reviewing acquisition proposals, when my assistant buzzed in, Ms. Thompson, you have some interesting applications for the regional manager positions. I looked at the names on my screen and couldn't help but laugh. There they were, Michael Thompson, followed by applications from my father and 2 cousins. Their store had finally gone bankrupt, and now they were all desperately seeking employment. Sarah, I called to my assistant. Remember that rejection letter my father sent me when I asked to be considered for a management position at the family store? The one I showed you when we were developing our inclusive hiring policies. The particularly nasty one? Of course. I smiled, my hands steady as I typed out instructions. Please send that exact letter back to each of them, word for word. Just change the names and dates. With pleasure, Sarah grinned. And the line about physical limitations. Leave it exactly as is, I said. Let's see how they like having their own words turned back on them. As I looked out over the city skyline from my office, I thought about that trembling 22-year-old girl arranging papers in a dying grocery store. My hands would always shake, but my resolve never would again. I opened my laptop to review the latest proposal, a program to help small businesses owned by people with disabilities access technology and funding. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, but using that success to prevent others from facing the same discrimination you did. My phone buzzed. Mom's first attempt to contact me in 5 years. I let it go to voicemail, my hands steady as I continued my work. They had defined me by my limitations. I had defined myself by my possibilities. And now, they would learn exactly what those possibilities had become. The voicemails and emails flooded in over the next few days, each one more desperate than the last, as my family realized exactly who owned the company they'd applied to. "Alexandra, sweetie," Mom's third voicemail pleaded, "we didn't recognize the company name. You've done so well for yourself. We should talk about family helping family." I played the messages on speaker while my executive team reviewed quarterly reports. Sarah, my assistant-turned-chief of staff, rolled her eyes at each increasingly dramatic plea. "Your father just called again," she reported. "He's insisting that as your father, he deserves a personal meeting." I glanced at the latest acquisition reports on my screen. Our company had just purchased the building that used to house their grocery store. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Schedule them all for Friday," I decided. "Together. Let's handle this once and for all." Friday morning arrived with a thunderstorm that matched my mood. I stood at my office window, watching rain streak down the glass of our flagship building. 40 stories of success they'd said I'd never achieve. "They're here," Sarah announced. "Your father, mother, brother, and 3 cousins. Should I send them in?" I straightened my custom-designed ergonomic jacket, part of a clothing line I'd developed for professionals with various physical needs. "Give me 2 minutes." I sat behind my desk, deliberately placing my tablet and adaptive stylus in front of me. My hands shook slightly as I adjusted them, not from nervousness, but from my usual tremor. I'd long since stopped trying to hide it. The door opened, and they filed in. The contrast between us couldn't have been starker. Their discount store clothes against my tailored suit, their uncertain shuffling against my deliberate movements, their shocked expressions as they took in my corner office with its wall of industry awards. "Alexandra," Mom stepped forward, arms outstretched. "You look successful," I supplied, not rising to meet her embrace. "Please take a seat." They settled into the conference area of my office, looking uncomfortable in the expensive leather chairs. "About those rejection letters," Dad began, his face reddening. "That was clearly a mistake. Someone in HR used the exact same words you used on me." I interrupted, pulling up the original letter on my tablet and projecting it onto the wall screen. "Let's review, shall we?" I read aloud. "Given your obvious physical limitations and the importance of steady, reliable performance, we regret to inform you that you are not suited for a management position at this time. Perhaps you should consider more appropriate career options." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "That was different. We were trying to protect you." "No," I said firmly. "You were underestimating me, using my disability as an excuse to keep me dependent. How did that work out for the store?" I pulled up the bankruptcy records. 5 years of steady decline, exactly as I predicted in the business plan you refused to read. "We made mistakes," Mom admitted, tears forming. "But we're family. Surely that counts for something." I looked at my trembling hands, then at the empire I'd built with them. "Family?" I picked up my adaptive stylus. "Let's talk about family. When I developed this stylus design to help people with tremors, write and draw, where were you? When I won the Innovation in Accessibility Award, did any of you attend?" Silence. "I built this company with a mission," I continued. "We don't just consult on business transformation. We specifically focus on making workplaces accessible and inclusive. Every product, every service we design considers people with disabilities from the start. I stood and walked to the awards wall. That obvious physical limitation you were so concerned about. It drove me to innovate solutions that have helped thousands of people enter the workforce. Our adaptive technology division alone is worth more than your store ever was. We get it, Michael snapped. You're successful. Are you going to help us, or just gloat? I turned back to them, my expression hard. Help you? Like you helped me? Should I protect you from the real world? Tell you you're not capable? Dad stood up, anger flaring. Now listen here. No, you listen. I cut him off. I am offering you something, but not what you expect. Our company is launching a program for failed business owners. We teach them how to adapt, innovate, and rebuild. It includes sensitivity training on disability inclusion. I handed them each a brochure. You can apply to that program. If you complete it successfully, you'll be considered for entry-level positions with no special treatment. Entry-level? Mom gasped. But we have years of business experience. Failed business experience, I corrected, and a proven track record of poor judgment and discrimination. I sat back down, my hands steady despite the tremor. The program starts next month. Take it or leave it. Either way, this meeting is over. They sat there, stunned, until Sarah opened the door. Their cue to leave. Alexandra, Dad said, turning back at the door. We, save it, I said quietly. Actions speak louder than words. If you want to prove you've changed, here's your chance. After they left, Sarah brought in a cup of my favorite tea. That was intense, she observed. Are you okay? I looked at my trembling hands wrapped around the warm cup. You know what's funny? My hands shake just as much as they did when I was arranging inventory sheets in their store. The only thing that changed was believing in myself more than I believed in their limitations. And now, I smiled, pulling up the proposal for our newest initiative, a startup incubator specifically for entrepreneurs with disabilities. Now we make sure no one else has to prove their worth to people who should have believed in them from the start. That evening, as I worked late in my office, an email arrived from Michael. Sis, I signed up for the program, not because I need a job, though I do, but because today was the first time I really saw you. Not your tremor, not your limitation, but you. I was wrong. We all were. I know it doesn't make up for everything, but I'd like to learn. Michael, I sat back in my chair, thinking about the scared young woman I'd been, arranging papers with shaking hands. She never dreamed she'd be here, running a Fortune 500 company, changing lives, redefining possibilities. My hands still shook as I typed my response. Program starts Monday. Don't be late. Alexandra Thompson, CEO, Davis and Mitchell Consulting. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong. It's giving them a chance to learn why they were wrong in the first place. The autumn chill had settled over the city as I watched the first day our business rehabilitation program from my office. Through the glass walls of our state-of-the-art training center 12 floors below, I could see my family among the 20 participants. They looked small from up here. The press release about the program has gone viral, Sarah reported, handing me my morning coffee in my specialized grip cup. Forbes wants to do a feature on the CEO revolutionizing disability employment. I smiled, remembering how my family used to hide me in the store's back room when important customers came in. Schedule it, but make sure they focus on the program, not just my story. The training program was intense, designed to break down and rebuild everything these failed business owners thought they knew. Day one started with each participant attempting simple tasks while wearing simulation devices. Tremor gloves like my condition, vision-altering glasses, mobility restrictors. Through the security feed, I watched my father struggle to complete a basic spreadsheet wearing tremor gloves. His frustration was visible as the mouse skittered across the screen. Numbers being entered incorrectly, calculations going awry, just like my teenage years at the store. "Miss Thompson," my intercom buzzed. "Your mother is requesting to see you. She's quite insistent." I sighed. "Send her up." Mom entered my office looking disheveled, her eyes red. "Alexandra, I can't. I tried using those gloves, and I couldn't even." "How do you?" "Every day." I finished for her. "That's how I feel every day. Or did you forget?" She sank into a chair, really looking at me for what felt like the first time in years. "We thought we were protecting you, limiting your responsibilities because we didn't want you to fail." "No," I corrected, holding up my shaking hands. "You limited me because you didn't want to deal with my potential success. It was easier to keep me small." "The program instructor said you designed all the simulation devices yourself." I nodded, pulling up the designs on my tablet. Each one precisely replicates different disabilities. The tremor gloves have 5 settings. I'm a 3 on good days, 4 on bad ones. You're wearing a 2. Her eyes widened. "That was only a 2. Tomorrow you'll try level 3. Then maybe you'll understand why your protection was actually a prison." The next few weeks were transformative, and not just for my family. The program participants learned about adaptive technology, inclusive design, and the untapped potential of the disability community. They studied countless success stories of entrepreneurs and executives with various disabilities. Michael, surprisingly, threw himself into the program with genuine enthusiasm. He stayed late, asked questions, and seemed truly changed by the experience. One evening, he caught me as I was leaving the office. "Sis, can we talk?" We sat in my office, the city lights twinkling below us. "I've been thinking about the store," he said, "about how you tried to save it with your inventory system. I found the old files on the computer after you left. Your analysis was brilliant. It doesn't matter now." "It does," he insisted, "because I finally understand what you've built here. It's not just a successful company. It's a statement about possibility." I studied him, looking for the arrogant brother who used to mock my trembling hands. Instead, I saw someone humbled and enlightened. "The program instructor mentioned you're launching an incubator for disabled entrepreneurs," he continued. "I'd like to help, not as an executive or anything, but maybe in operations? I've learned so much about adaptive technology and inclusive design." "Why?" I asked directly. "Why should I trust you with something so important to me?" He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a tremor glove. I'd been wearing it even after hours. "Level 3, like you." I wanted to understand, really understand. And I realized, you're not successful despite your disability. In many ways, you're successful because of it. It made you innovate, think differently, see opportunities we all missed. I felt tears threatening but held them back. "And Dad?" "Mom?" "Dad's struggling," he admitted. His pride took a huge hit. "But Mom, she's different. She's been researching disability rights in her free time. Yesterday, she yelled at someone for using handicapped parking without a permit." A knock interrupted us, Sarah with the latest quarterly reports. "Your brother's evaluation scores from the program," she added, handing me another folder. He's top of the class. After Michael left, I reviewed his file. Perfect attendance, exceptional engagement, glowing instructor comments, and a business proposal, a consulting division specifically focused on helping family businesses navigate succession planning with disabled heirs. The irony was almost too perfect. The program's graduation day arrived with ceremony. 90 participants had made it through. One had quit after the first week, unable to handle the paradigm shift required. My family sat in the front row as I took the podium for the keynote speech. Success isn't about overcoming disabilities. I began, my hands visibly shaking as I held the microphone. It's about redefining what's possible. Each of you has spent 8 weeks experiencing different disabilities. You've struggled, adapted, and learned. But the real question is, what will you do with this knowledge? I looked directly at my parents. Some of you came here looking for jobs, others for retention. What you found, I hope, was understanding, not just of disabilities, but of potential. The graduation ceremony concluded with each participant presenting their business transformation proposals. Michael's presentation on inclusive succession planning received a standing ovation. Mom cried during her presentation on adaptive retail spaces. Even Dad, still struggling with his pride, presented a solid plan for disability-friendly inventory management systems. Afterward, during the reception, Dad approached my office. "Alexandra," he started, then stopped, looking lost. "Yes, I've been angry," he admitted. "Angry that you proved us wrong. Angry that you succeeded when we said you couldn't. Angry that our store failed while you soared. But mostly, I've been angry at myself." He pulled out a piece of paper, his original rejection letter to me, now wrinkled and worn. "I've carried this every day of the program. Wearing those gloves, trying to work like you do. It killed me knowing I wrote these words. That I limited my own daughter because I was too afraid to let her try." I took the letter, my hands trembling as always. "And now I understand why you sent our applications back with the same words. We deserved it. I deserved it." He reached for my shaking hands, then stopped himself. "Can you ever forgive us?" I looked out at the reception, where Michael was enthusiastically explaining adaptive technology to other participants, where Mom was discussing disability rights with our program instructors. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting," I said finally. "It's about moving forward. The question is, are you ready to move forward into a world where your daughter's disability isn't a limitation, but a different way of seeing possibilities?" He nodded, tears in his eyes. "Then yes," I said softly. "We can move forward, starting with this." I handed him an employee badge, Level 1 Operations Manager in our Adaptive Technology Division. "You'll report to Michael," I added, enjoying his startled expression. "He's heading the new Family Business Consultation Division. Think you can handle working for your children?" Dad looked at the badge, then at my trembling hands that had built an empire. "I think," he said slowly, "it's time I learned from those who see possibilities where I only saw limitations." As they left that evening, I stood at my window, watching the city lights flicker like stars. My hands shook as they always did, but now they shook with power, with purpose, with possibility. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong, but in showing them a new way to be right. 1 year after the program's graduation, I stood on stage at the National Disability Employment Conference, preparing to make a landmark announcement. In the audience, my family sat together, not as failed business owners, but as part of a revolutionary change in business inclusion. When I started this journey, I began, my hands steady on the specialized podium I designed. It was about proving something to my family, to the world, to myself. Today, it's about creating something bigger than revenge or vindication. The screens behind me lit up with our company's latest initiative, the Thompson Institute for Inclusive Business Innovation. This institute, I continued, will provide full scholarships for disabled entrepreneurs, offering them the support my family once denied me, but with a twist. I nodded to Michael, who joined me on stage. His tremor gloves were now a permanent part of his attire, not as a simulation anymore, but as a gesture of solidarity. My brother, who once mocked my disability, will serve as executive director of family integration, because sometimes the people who once held us back become our strongest advocates for moving forward. Mom wiped away tears in the audience, while Dad sat straight-backed, proudly wearing his operations manager badge. They had both come so far from the parents who once hid me in the back room. The institute will launch with $50 million in funding, I announced. And every graduate will receive not just support, but a chance to pitch their innovations to our venture capital division. The applause was thunderous, but I wasn't finished. And to lead by example, I raised my trembling hands. I am announcing our company's acquisition of 5 major retail chains. Their first mandate? Full disability access and employment programs overseen by graduates of our business rehabilitation program. In the green room afterward, my family gathered around me. I never thought, Dad said quietly, that my greatest business lesson would come from the daughter I once thought couldn't handle business. Mom touched my shaking hands gently. Your tremor, it built all this. We were so wrong about limitation. Michael, now a rising star in disability employment consulting, grinned. Ready for phase 2, sis? We got 20 new family businesses signed up for the inclusion program. I looked at my hands, thinking of that young woman arranging inventory sheets. She never imagined her limitation would create an empire of possibility. You know what's funny? I said, picking up my tablet. My hands still shake exactly the same as they did in the store. The only thing that changed was who defined what that meant. Sarah appeared with our latest financial reports. Stocks up 200% since announcing the institute. Turns out, inclusion isn't just right, it's profitable. Looking at my family, no longer broken by prejudice, but rebuilt by understanding, I realized something profound. Success wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about showing them a new way to be right. My hands shook as I raised a glass for a toast, but nobody tried to steady them anymore. They understood now. Sometimes the things that shake us become the foundations on which we build our greatest strengths. To limitations, I said. To possibilities, they responded. And in that moment, watching my trembling hands hold up that glass, I knew we'd all finally learned the same lesson. Disability isn't a barrier to success. It's often the bridge to innovation that changes the world.